I was going to 105 in the South Tower. And that happened to be at that time the highest occupied level of the building, because 110 and 107 in the South Tower, those were observation decks, and it was too early for them to be open. The woman that was running the meeting happened to meet us when we got to the 105th floor and the elevator doors opened, and she escorted us all to the internal conference room where we were going to have our meeting. And that internal conference room was exactly that. It was inside the floor, so there were 4 walls and no windows and 1 door. We didn't see it. We couldn't see anything. We didn't hear anything. We didn't feel anything. We just had this flicker of lights go on, and a gentleman from the company that we were visiting came into the room and he said, "Hey, there's been an explosion in the North Tower. We got to evacuate." And all 54 of us did the same exact thing. We all kind of waved our hands back at this poor gentleman and said, "It's New York. Stuff is always going on in New York. Let us have our meeting. We'll be fine. You know, don't worry about it. We'll be fine." Mm. He shook his head a little bit. He said, "No, you don't understand." He said, "I have to get everybody here off those floors so I can leave. And let me tell you, I want to leave." He got everybody out of that room. I know he did, because I was the last person out of the room with him. He escorted us to the nearest fire exit, fire stairwell. And that's where he proceeded to tell us at floor 105 that we were now going to walk down 105 flights of steps.
I was sitting at my desk getting stuff done, probably. I'd had breakfast, I had a cup of tea, was working through things. About an hour into the day, you know, there was this dull thud that I heard and some dust in the air. So there was often loud bangs. There were often construction booms. So, you know, I remember walking around to see Brian and saying, you know, "What's happened?" And he said, "You know, I'm going to go and investigate. Don't worry about it." So I'm back at my desk getting on with things. And then what happened was a loud voice, a man's voice, shouting, "Everybody out." Brian wasn't in his office. I went back to my desk. I saw a couple of other people and said, "Look, you know, I'm going to go." Picked up my bag, took a couple of steps away and thought to myself, "Oh, hang on, let me ring London and tell them what's happening." So I called London looking for Gil. Couldn't find Gil, couldn't find Keith. They're in and out of meetings. So I spoke to Robin, and, you know, I spoke to him on the phone, and he tells the story better than me, but I'm very kind of casual. And, "Hey, Rob, just to let you know, something's happening next door. We're getting ready, you know, and I'm leaving." Screaming down the phone at me, "Something's going on next door. Fucking hell, Janice, a plane's gone into the building. Get the fuck out of there." Screaming at me down the phone. A voice of horror, a voice of terror, a voice of concern, a voice of worry. You know, here's a guy who's 3,500 miles away from me, and he's watching it on the television. Mm-hmm. And I have no clue. You know, I'm looking down on the Statue of Liberty, beautiful sunny day, was aware that something was happening, but was no concern really. Mm-hmm. And with him screaming at me down the telephone, I don't remember hanging up. I don't remember saying goodbye. I just remember starting to run, picked up my bag and started to run. I ran round the dealing floor. As I was running, 3 guys were walking towards me, Brian Clark, who we've talked about, and Dominic and Dan. And they were walking to me, chatting away like normal. As I'm running, I'm saying, "Robin said there's a plane gone into the building. We have to leave." And Brian and they all said the same thing. "You know, it's next door. We're all okay. We're going to stay. What do you want to do? If you want to stay, just stay away from the windows. What do you want to do?" I didn't know. I just kept in my mind, it's in slow motion. As they're walking towards me, Dan was smiling at me, just like a normal, you know, just like nothing's happening. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Steve and Jose. They were the fire marshals. Steve caught my eye and said, "Come on, Janice, down. Come on, off you go." So my decision to stay or go was taken out of my hands.
Yeah.
And they herded me into the stairwell. Just in front of me was another guy who was from Eurobrokers, but I didn't know him. I'd seen him on the dealing floor, but I didn't know his name. As we walked into the stairwell, people were still coming down. After a little while, I'd lost count of floors. For each floor, remember, there's two sets of stairs.
Yeah.
There was an announcement. Please, we have been asked not to evacuate to World Trade. The space on the plaza is being used for those being evacuated from One World Trade. Please take note of what floor you're on, go to the nearest re-entry point and return to your office. Yeah. So we walked around into the lift lobby. There were, by that time, there were about a dozen people in the lift lobby, and they were all from Eurobrokers. 6 of them were from Eurobrokers at least, and I knew them. And there were 2 people that I particularly knew, but one person that I particularly knew very well was Paul, and he was with Bobby. And so we're waiting for the elevators to start. You know what men are like, pushing the button. Where's the elevator? Where's the elevator? Blah, 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 blah. And in the end, someone said, come on, let's just walk back. So they took off almost running, and I turned the corner with the other people, and I shouted out to him, hang on, wait for me. And he said, come on, old woman. He was like 2 months older than me, so that was a joke between that was the joke between us. Come on, old woman. And they turned into the stairwell, and I never saw him again. They were going back up. The idea was we were returning to our office, just like the voice told us to. So they took off quite quickly, and they turned into the stairwell. And the last thing he said to me was, come on, old woman. And then they were gone.
At the 90th, we're probably about 10 minutes in, I walk out of that fire stairwell just like everybody else, thinking that maybe I had to go to another fire stairwell somewhere along the line. I didn't know. It was the worst 30, 40 seconds of my life. You look out the building to the North Tower, you see these huge black holes through the sides of the building, gray and black billows of smoke pouring out of those holes, flames redder than any red I'd ever seen in my life, licking up the sides of the building. And you could see through the smoke into the fire and into those huge black holes. And I could see pieces of the fuselage of a large plane lodged inside the other building. And it was a crystal clear day that day in New York City. It was a beautiful day. I remember as I'm looking at this, thinking to myself, my God, how did the pilot not see the building? How did he miss this building? Well, he didn't miss the building. He didn't miss. So now me, through either good luck or good fortune or good thought or grace of God, I decided I was not staying. I was not going to hesitate. I was going to get out. I proceeded to make my way down the steps. When I got down to that 78th floor sky lobby level, the woman that was running the meeting was in front of me. She called out to me. She said she was going to go to the elevators, take the elevator. She wasn't going to walk down all these flights of steps in her high heel shoes. She wasn't going to do this. Come with me, come with me. I never said a word. I just kind of waved politely to her that I heard her, and I turned around and went back to the fire stairwell. Arguably the best decision I've made in what's still my life. I was somewhere between 74 and 72 when the second plane plowed through our building.
We're just under the
Right, 77. They went through the building between 77 and
84.
83. Never felt anything like that. Never want to feel anything like that again. That fire stairwell that we're inside just shook so violently back and forth. Back and forth, and it shouldn't be doing this, okay? And it's shaking back and forth, and the concrete is breaking out, and the handrails are breaking away from the wall, and the steps were like waves in the ocean. undulating underneath our feet. We smelt jet fuel. We felt this ball of heat go blowing by us. And this thing kept rocking back and forth, back and forth. It felt like forever, but maybe it was seconds, maybe a minute. And it finally stopped. You would think there would be pandemonium, craziness, okay? But there was just this stunned silence for all of us that were right there. Just the heat generated by the friction of the plane through the steel. No explosion, no fire, just frictional heat from the plane through the steel was over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So everybody on that 78th floor, that sky lobby level, waiting for an elevator, they were killed instantly. They literally didn't know what hit them. Actually, for them, it was a blessing because there was no pain.
Yeah.
We're now trying to recover. What do we do? Well, the only thing you can do is get out. Okay, you're not sure what's happening, so you make your way down the steps just like anybody else with a level of urgency. And everything was moving relatively well until the 35th floor. And that's the chance when we had to encounter the police and the firefighters and the paramedics from New York City and from the Port Authority going up the steps as we were heading down the steps. It was one of those moments in your life that's etched in my memory forever. Just the looks in the eyes of these first responders told the entire story without a word being said. They knew they were going up the steps to try to fight a fire that they couldn't beat, to save lives that they could not save. They were doing what they promised to protect and serve, save other people as best they could. And they knew they were going up, and they knew that they were never coming back. They knew.
So we went back into the stairwell. Bobby and Paul had gone. They'd gone. We didn't see them again, as I said. After 4 or 5 sets of stairs, you come out of the stairwell, you go into a connecting corridor, and then there's a door at one end, there's a corridor, there's a door up at the other end. I took probably 2 or 3 steps into the stairwell. There was just a thudding sound. The building seemed to shake a little bit. The ceiling, the lights were flickering on and off. The ceiling grid fell down, tiles everywhere, dust, everyone was coughing. I stumbled back against the wall. Other people fell to the ground, but I just stumbled on the wall. Lights flickering on and off. There was a couple of girls in the corridor that started crying. The thing that I remember most is the dust swirling everywhere and it being black. And then the lights flickering on and off, and then the lights staying on. We kind of gathered ourselves, and then there was just this blood-curdling scream. A woman, one of those screams from like every horror movie you've ever seen that goes on forever, and I can still hear it ringing in my head now. Banging on the door that we were heading up to. So we'd come out of this door, there was a corridor, there was the up door, banging on the door, people screaming, people help, the handle going, people trying to move the handle. And what had happened, the ceiling grid had fallen down and buckled and was in front of the door. So a couple of the guys in the corridor, so there was a guy that I didn't know from Eurobrokers, and there was a guy in a white shirt from Eurobrokers. I didn't know who he was either, but they cleared all the debris away. They were finally, the people at the other side were pushing, and these guys were pulling. Eventually the door was opened, and a lady came through, cuts all over her face. You could see glass in her hair. She had her arm was cut from here, from her shoulder to her elbow, and it was flapping down. And as she was moving, blood was going everywhere, and I could see the bone. She was crying. She had blood all down her leg. Her foot was bleeding. I could see her foot was bleeding. She had, she shook her hair and glass went everywhere. A guy came after her. He had all glass in his chest. People were pulling it out. Another guy came and he had a big cut across his back, and that his whole back was like blood and it was dripping everywhere. He had another guy came through. The lady with the arm, the guy that was with her, that worked with her, he had his gym bag. He took out a t-shirt and wrapped it around, and they made a sling for her. And someone said, "What happened?" And one of the guys said there was this loud hissing sound. And as they were walking up to join the staircase, there was a loud hissing sound. We looked up, the glass, there was a fireball coming towards us. The glass all shattered, and we ran back here. And one of the guys said, "I think the other building fell on us." So they all came into the corridor with us. So they then, the guy with the white shirt and the Eurobroker's guy as well, just cleared all the debris from the other door that we'd just come through. And they opened it, and one of the guys looked down and he said the stairs had gone. It was blackness and he could see flames. You just look around, and then magically, suddenly there's another door. And it was right next it was on the left of the, as you walked in, it was on the left of the corridor. It had no mouldings around it, so you wouldn't know it was there. It was exact same colour paint as the wall, and it didn't have a handle. But when you pressed a little button, a handle popped out. So again, the guy, I mean, how magical is that, right? And I hesitate to say a miracle, but to me it kind of was. The guys, again, hands on knees, pulling away all the debris. They tried to open the door. It was really hard. There was something blocking it from the other side, but inch by inch by inch, they opened it. The guy with the white shirt got through, and he pushed from that side, and the guys on this side pulled. And I was just standing there watching it happen, kind of thing, you know. Eventually we could all get through. We walked into a corridor that was really well lit. Lights were flickering on and off, but mainly staying on. But there was the lady with the arm was walking in front of me. We were walking down in single line. Then it was me. Then there was a lady behind, the screaming lady. She had asthma. She had to keep stopping to pump. You know, where everyone was crying, and you could hear coughing, and that it was silence apart from coughing and you know, people crying. The guy from Eurobrokers kept running backwards and forwards. "Come on, guys, we have to keep going. Come on, come on, come on." We were going down in a single line. The lady in front of me with the arm, when I looked down, I could see that she'd lost a couple of, it's almost something sliced her foot. I could see that, you know, there was no shoe there, and it was very bloody. And I just stopped and watched her walk. And every single step she took, she left a bloody footprint. And when I looked down at my toes, there was blood oozing through my toes. And a big scream just was building in front of me. And I know the logic was it wasn't my blood. I know that I was okay, but it was just, I've never seen blood as red. You know, it was just oozing through my toes. It made me feel sick. It made me feel scared. It made me just want to sit and cry. And he came running up and said, "What's happening? What's happening?" I said, "Look, look." And he said, "Don't worry, it's not your blood. Don't worry, it's not your blood. We have to keep going." He was quite insistent. So I kind of calmed myself. We started down again.
When we got down to the lobby, you look out the glass windows in that huge lobby, and you see what look like the signs or the vestiges of war: crumbled concrete, twisted steel, big red markings on the ground, and you knew what those red markings on the ground were. They couldn't let us out at the street level. It wasn't safe. They took us down into the underground, and you get down there, first thing we noticed were people in real severe ways. missing limbs, gaping wounds, real blood and gut stuff. So we made our way back forth up to the ground level. And when we got there, just an incredible scene. They were already bulldozing whatever was there away, and it was gruesome. I mean, not just concrete and steel, but everything. And they're bulldozing it away, and every person in uniform that's there is screaming at us, "Run, run, run, don't stop, don't stop." When we got out, we look back at these buildings, and it's an unbelievable sight. You know, these fire and smoke. You see, it's basically a ticker tape of concrete and steel and bodies. This is where, for the first chance, we had to see human beings making the unfortunate decision of either jumping or dying from the fire. I don't know what choice I would have made. I don't know, but this was your choice: burn to death or jump. And when you see these people falling after they've jumped, you want to turn away, but yet there's this feeling of you've almost got to watch to honor the decision that they've made and to honor their last few seconds of life, because clearly they knew that they would never survive a jump. And it's a gruesome sight.
And out of these 54 people that were with you attending that meeting that day, how many survived?
7.
Only 7.
Only 7.
We finally got to the plaza entrance. Again, if you know New York, you'll know there's shops, and then you go down to the subway and things like that. We got to the plaza level, and a couple of medics come running over and took her and the guy that was with. The last I saw, they were being taken away by the medics, and then everyone just went in different directions. There were people telling you where to go. The foyer, the foyer was full of firemen and policemen still going into the building. We went over to the corner, and there was a guy there, and he said, "Okay, go up to there and then get out." So we went up to the top, and there was a big burly American cop there, and he said, "Okay, kids," he said, "don't look up, don't look back, run to that guy over there." And there was a guy standing on the corner. Run to him. Bob grabbed my hand, and we took off running. We got to the other side, and the cop said, "Right, everyone's been evacuated. Go this way. We're sending everyone out over the Brooklyn Bridge. We're evacuating, total evacuation of Lower Manhattan. You need to go that way." We turned the corner, and for the first time, I looked up at the buildings. And where our floor should have been. I had a rough idea of where the floor should be. There was this huge gaping hole and smoke and flames coming out. So I knew then that the other building hadn't collapsed into us. I looked at Bob, and he looked at me, and he said, "Come on, we need to go." Again, the urgency in his voice, it was almost like he knew that we had to just get away from here. When I look back at my story, Robin Clark telling me to get the fuck out of there, Bob Mahan helping me, getting me to the apartment, the guy from the dry cleaners telling me not to use the candle, the fireman that sent me on the way to Canal Street, the booming voice man, the man that helped me from Grand Central, the lady that helped me get to Rego Park, all those conductors, all those people were in a line almost to help me. And I didn't help anyone. I could have said to Dan and Brian and Dominic, "Come on, let's go. Come on. Robin said we have to go. Come on." But I didn't. So I think, this is hard. If I have a regret from the day, it was that, to my shame, I didn't help anybody. People helped me, but I did nothing for anyone else. And that's what haunts me.